Very, a very expounded introduction. I don't have to take that again, but I hold multiple disciplines and found some meaning on how I balance that. And I always want to refer myself as a holistic psych. I want to look at a human being from the three domains: the physical, the mind, and the soul. And I believe when the three dimensions are well taken care of, then we can talk about a holistic approach into, care for humanity. And these people become an integrated human being because all the three dimensions of health are in synchrony, and they're able to function well. So I look at life from that spectrum. So how do we balance the three domains? And to our topic today, um, in front of your screen, I hope you can see some image on your left. Does that look familiar? There is a photo of a guy there. I'm not sure who he resembles, and a few of other things, around that. We can see that, right? And for me, this is just what we would expect, like in our workplace. We are surrounded by staff all around us. Our mind is racing, and we all have targets and deadlines to meet, and all other things as we'll be looking at this. And it is also important to really pause and reflect: how are we being impacted by our workplace? I am involved in staff support in my organization, and we work with structured sessions of debriefing and just getting to do some staff support as part of the employee assistant program, the wing now that deals with really trying to deal with issues of mental health in workplaces, and is a growing phenomenon. And I believe organizations really need to begin focusing this. And the EAP, or the Employee Assistance Program, is always domiciled under the HR function. And because the work of HR is to manage people, part of that is to appreciate and recognize that employees are impacted by their work environment. So depending whether you are engineering, you are in finance, you are in the health space like me, and many other kind of disciplines that we have in the marketplace, is that environment is a stressor by itself, and all the things that happen within that office space or those workplace environment impact us in one way or another. Sometimes that impact can be negative, and sometimes can be positive. We always hope for a very favorable outcome when it is a positive impact, but the reality is sometimes we can be negatively impacted by that when it is a high pressure environment, and we have to meet deadlines, when we have to meet targets, whether it's quarterly, biannual, or annually, and people have to be, evaluated, performance evaluation against what the organization or corporate goal stands for. These things can cause tensions, anxiety, among many other kind of distresses. And so the conversation around is to identify these moments and be able to see how do we activate our inner resources by being aware of those circumstances, and activate the necessary resources to be able to build resilience, and also ensure that we are thriving human beings. And let me put on a presentation mode. Yeah. So before we begin, I don't know how many of you checked work emails or messages before breakfast today. Like when you bumped up into your phone, whether it's your laptop or tablet, whatever digital device you plugged in, or this came to your mind: I need to check whether I have some work emails, even before you had your breakfast today. I don't know, maybe you have the answers. I don't know how many have felt exhausted, not from just physical work, but from emotional weight. Like you just feel your mind is, so worn out, because of the stuff you've been dealing with in the office or at your workplace. I don't know how many feel that emotional exhaustion. How many have said, I am fine, when you really were not? So your supervisor is just passing around and checking what is happening around, and they ask you, how are you doing? And the normal African way of saying, I am fine, I'm doing fine. Yet deep within, you have a deep-seated, distress or struggle that makes you feel, oh, are you so tired? And lastly, how many believe stress is just part of the job and there is nothing you can do? So have you at one instance felt helpless and thought there are no options really to take? I have to do this because maybe uh, it's what puts food on my table, is what gives meaning to my life. I mean, you just surrender to fate. Like, I have to work. And so the translation of that can be an element of suffering. And so you deal with it from a point of helplessness. Like, I have nothing to do. I just have to do this. Whether you're feeling dissatisfied in your current role, or you're feeling the high pressure around work, these are just simple points to help us reflect, even as we begin. And all right, we have an image there that really depicts the kind of emotions that can be generated by the reflective questions we have I tried to answer on our left. So whether it's anxiety and tension in our minds, we can have muscle tension, sometimes physical pains that you do not understand where they come from. Sometimes you have a racing heart, the just feeling the urge to want to just complete certain tasks, and you feel all the pressure on your shoulders, and your heart really pumps in so fast, and you feel, oh, hey, this thing is really so weighty on me. And then gut reactions, just unnecessary things. We'll talk about acidity. We have a lot of gas in our stomachs, and it's really not being triggered by maybe the kind of diet we are on. It's just kind of triggers we get while we are doing our roles. So reflect on that and just see what really relates with you. And then if really your hand is up or you relate with one of any of those, then we are here for that conversations. And all of us really are part of that. So when we feel these experience and emotions we have talked about, so whether it is the anxiety and tension, because of the crazy deadlines we have to meet, those muscle tensions, the racing heart, the gut reactions, when we feel these experiences, it reminds us of the physiology or our biological bodies. And as statistics have there, 77% of workers experience physical stress symptoms. Then we also have 73% of workers also experience psychological stress at work. And then we have 48% that say stress has increased in the last 5 years. But then, what is stress? We have to acknowledge that we can't be without stress. Stress is a normal part of our life. But when we go beyond the elastic limit, the allowable resilience levels for our minds, and now it gets to serious distress, and gets to now staying up with us for quite some long time now, that now has some alarm in it. And we acknowledge, and well, we should understand that at what point do we really need help? At what point do we need support? At what point do we try and seek for professional help to be able to help us navigate those adversities and the work experiences? So stress, as a normal function of human experience, is your body alarm system. It means you care. It means you are a human being, that stress is part and normal of our life being. The problem begins when the alarm never turns off. And what do we do most of the times? I don't know whether you've had this opportunity, experience where you sleep and the alarm goes at 4:30 or 5, whatever time you wake up, and then you realize, hey, oh, I don't feel like waking up. And so you press the snooze button. So this is what happens with our bodies. We feel we are depleted, we're facing a mental breakdown because we can't just put our stuff together. There's a lot on our tables and desks, and requiring even sometimes a little bit of support from colleagues to be able to push on those deadlines and crazy targets that we have to work around. The management is on your case. You need to handle your deliverables, and everybody is around you. But you do not realize that you're breaking down. At what point do you now realize, wait a minute, instead of snoozing, this is where we assume, yeah, there is this, so we can look at temporal management, things that allow us to suspend that emotional, weight, and just be able to go push on. And we will see what that would lead to. So really, these statistics are crazy. And against this, I remember, I think last year we had some data also from Kenya National Bureau of Statistics that had put almost, this is one of the, um, uh, uh, department in government that has put, I think, almost 3.7 million people are facing mental health issues, and they were talking about the workforce in civil service. And you can imagine those are crazy numbers, and you do not know how much more then, with everything that is happening around people, is in the general populace. So it's important to understand this thing, that our biology allows us to feel all these feelings, and this shows that we are alive and as human beings. But then we want to know, how do we deal with it? So how do we recognize our triggers? Because when we do this is really winning half of the battle. And part of this will be workload and deadlines, as we have put there. There aren't enough hours in the day. You leave because maybe it's now so late in the evening, or you have to go, and you will always say, maybe today I'm pushing an extra 30 minutes, 1 hour to stay on in the office and just see how I deal with the bulk of the assignment that is at my desk. And so those workload and deadlines can be a trigger. These are just but things that generate to work stress, or where does that work stress come from? So those workloads and deadlines. And then we have difficult in relationships at workplace, conflicts with the supervisors and also fellow colleagues. And these are normal things, in any situation where you are dealing with human beings, conflicts are normal. So how you deal with workplace conflicts is a whole new way of understanding that it doesn't hamper on the teamwork and team spirit that would have an impact on the organizational corporate goals, where people are totally rendered dysfunction and not able to deal with their normal day running of the organization or institution. So how do we manage those workplace relationships and ensure that people are still guided by the best interest of the organization goals, and they are not dysfunctional? The other trigger will be role ambiguity, clarity in terms of role. I am not sure what is expected of me, and I used to laugh with some of my colleagues when we say that thing, and especially maybe our moderator will tell, as a HR professional, and also Jay, and also other HR professionals, who are on our chat tonight, that thing you always put in our roles and responsibility that says, and any other responsibility as assigned by the supervisor. And so you get yourself really being given a responsibility, and you're like, this is not within my specialization. And then you're reminded, do you remember your contract, the one that you signed? Underneath there was, and any other role as may be assigned by a supervisor. So sometimes role ambiguity, when employees or the people working in an organization or an institution are not clear in terms of their role, and there is a role overlap. These people are doing stuff meant by other people in other departments, and there are no clear structures, standard of operating procedures, clear work instructions that really depict how a specific specialization in terms of department ought to operate. And so you have overlaps in terms of role, and then people not being clear with what they should be able to be doing, these can be a trigger for work stress. And so you have some people handling more and we want to promote good working space. And so it's very important when people begin feeling like they have no control over things, you just meet documents on your table with a small note, attend to these. And as you go through that, you just realize, hey, wait a minute, certain functions of my work have really changed and I was not even consulted. So I'm left to now see how I navigate that, particular function. So that lack of control then can have an impact on work stress. The other one is work environment, noise, space, tools that don't work. These are common things. The work environment itself can generate to work stress. Where whether is in industries, you have a lot of noise, and some people are not able to concentrate. Space, there is a lot of limited space, and so people are working under duress, and then very limited space, and also tools that don't work. These can degenerate to the outcomes, and then when we have outcomes being affected, then this can generate work stress and how people also deliver. So we also have homework spillover. This is also another work stress. I can't leave work at work, so you decide you carry this home, and you have to go with one file or another. You have to pick certain documents to work on. Nowadays people can still do their work virtually, and so you realize there's a lot of spillover and there is no proper balance. So you go home when you're supposed to be resting, maybe connecting with family and stuff, you still have to do like an extra 2 or 3 hours to deal with your backlog, because of maybe the hours that were not enough. And so when we have this kind of thing, then the people, members of your family who may not be, understanding this kind of context, will begin realizing we are competing with time with this member of a family. And by that understanding, then you can have that can have work stress, and so you have conflicts even at a home level that are degenerated with the spillover of work, and that you carried home. So this can also be a trigger for work stress. Any other that you think of? Maybe you can put it on the chat. I didn't just put everything here, so we talk of our experience. I don't know, what else do you think can trigger into work stress in the course of our working? We have one example there of how we can maintain a good balance, and what actually really work. So there is a myth of how we should balance, work-life balance, whether it's 50-50 or no, not knowing when to shift. And it's very important how we balance between work and life. So recognizing this imbalance is the first step to change. So am I overindulging, engaging with a spillover of work? I carry over work from home to 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 home. I mean, from work to home and all these kind of things. So it's important to understand that. And one of the best ways that we can handle this is to having a hard stop time and protecting it. If I know I work until 5, when it is 5, you are sure now you are supposed to be going home. And so by that, when that time is coming up, you are scaling down your activities of the day and ensure that that time is well guarded, whatever time that you work through. So reminding you that now I need to scale down my activities as I end my day, and that is very important. So also creating phone-free zones, you know, meals and all those kind of things is very important. You know, we live in a very busy world. I should have started by saying that we live in a very busy and noisy world. And if we are not careful, it can suck life out of us. So it's very important to desire to have this kind of a proper balance so that we are able to be integrated and also holistic human beings, as we began by saying. So how do we create those phone-free zones? You know, today when people are supposed to be resting, you know, it's very easy to, you know, get into temptation and you are not feeling sleepy, and so you'll carry your phone in the bedroom and you meet sayo ndio you watching a series, almost a whole series, and by the time you realize you've eaten to 3 to 4 hours of your rest time, and this is going to show up in terms of your productivity in the following day, because when you don't get enough sleep, we know this has an implication into your overall health. You know, when we talk about sleep debt, when it's accumulated over and over, is there is evidence to show that can even cause other, you know, life-threatening illnesses. So it's very important that we are able to create those time zones. You know, this time is a phone-free times, and even being able to foster for those a relationship at family level and also at workplace. You know, nowadays people want to live in silos. You know, you relate, you say you have friends, but you are referring to your 5,000 virtual friends who are your followers, or 10,000 or 20,000. People are competing on followers. And so these can also cause an imbalance on how we balance life and also work. So schedule also recovery, like you schedule your meetings. You realize I need some to build some resilience levels. I need to debrief on how I feel I'm negatively being impacted by my work environment. So sometimes involves just taking a sabbatical. You know, when you take your leave, you're not taking your leave to also go on continuing working. Get to interplays of you do activities that help you to regenerate your mind, you know, regenerate your body, and so that when you resume back to work, you are on your optimal functioning and you are able to have a very good productivity and output. Taking your lunch break, you know, people nowadays carry their lunch and they sit. You realize you've been sitting in a computer almost 8 hours. By the way, I should have said this. The new smoking disease, quote unquote, is sitting in office desks. That is what they are saying. Sitting on office desk for long hours is equivalent to a person smoking. It has the same nature of health risk as a person who is smoking, you know, and people are having issues with their, you know, spine, you know, which later affects their nerves and many other of conditions that are facing because people are immobile. So you're allowed to schedule technical timeouts. Like if you sat for 30 minutes, take a walk for 2 or 3 minutes. And some of these can be whether it's a tea break or a lunch break. If you're doing lunch, you are encouraged to wake up and walk. At least even if you can take lunch 10 or 15 minutes outside your work environment, is really, you know, a good balance to attain. But make sure that technical timeout helps your mind to transition and be able to change. You know, when you come back and begin doing this fun, at least you're not doing it from a point of tiresomeness, and you're able to be revamped. So sleeping, of course, is not laziness. You know, it's maintenance, and I've talked about that. You know, have desire. It's recommended. You know, getting at least 8 hours of sleep in a day. You know, and I say this is a sleep is a free God given gift. You know, and we know, you know, for people of faith, God created the world for 6 days, and on seventh day he rested. So if God in himself can go and rest with all his almighty, then who are we as human beings? And so I believe for me is that he built rest into our own very physiology. Our bodies are meant to shut down for a third day of a daily cycle. I mean, and one of the quickest way to lose perspective is to cheat ourselves out of this God-given off switch, where your mind scales down and shuts down and tells you, hey, It's time for sleep. Just go and get that rest. And determining to get enough sleep each night should be a very intentional process, for you, and ensure that you are able to rest. We say is help you to be able to get re-energized and you're able to show up better, the following day. And that is very important. So balancing is not just a destination. We are saying it's a daily decision. How do you structure your days? I mean, do you run on a diary? It's very easy to, important to program, because what we are looking at here is what would really work. How do we balance between life and work? Um, are we flowing? And just alert me in the case we have a reaction from the audience. So one of the things that can help us to attain that perspective, we are talking about a healthy balance between work and life, is also being able to monitor our nervous system and how it responds to our breath every time. And so the breathe and pause and reset exercise is one of the coping mechanisms that can help us. And here you inhale, you breathe in like for 4 seconds, you hold your breath for 7 seconds, and then you exhale for 8 seconds. If you do this activity repeatedly 3 to 4 times, whenever you feel overwhelmed, whether it's workspace, and then this is something you can do just at your workstation, it helps you to get some form of a timeout and a breather, and you're able to refocus again on yourself. So sometimes you have to engage with these kind of activities to be able to calm down your nervous system and communicate safety to your brain function, out of the high pressure environment and everything. Something that can scale down your, whether it's your racing mind or whatever kind of emotional weight you would have, is a quick way of attaining back some locus control. You're able to be able to work better. So, and you can always try this. It's a simple exercise, really. So you inhale for 4 seconds and you hold air for 4 seconds, and then you exhale for 8 seconds. This activity can help you, breathe, pause, and also reset. Now, we talk about this animal called the burnout. And we have a question here. Are you burnt out or burning bright? Burnout is a current, is a now almost a medical condition, really, where if you're not careful, really, it will lead to a lot of breakdown. And by the time you are realizing, it began with a mental breakdown and now presenting as a physical dysfunction. And when you go to the hospital, you have all the tests done, and you're just told there is no disease, but you're feeling pain all over. You are so disoriented, and by the time you're realizing is that you have been really negatively impacted by your work environment. So we should be able to understand that burnout is not personal failure. It's an organizational signal. It signals to, people who, are either broken down because of the kind of things they are dealing with at the workspace. And so how does it present? Burnout will present by being exhausted daily. Have you ever had maybe employees or people who are always complaining on being tired daily? You get to work in the morning and you're already feeling tired even before you do anything. So you need to understand. That can be a symptom for burnout. Sometimes you're just irritable and cynical. You've just gone and talked to your supervisor or a colleague at work, and you just realize there is no even slightest provocation, and they are really responding with high tones and anger. So that irritability itself can be a sign of burnout. This is the body complaining, and now it's presenting, as a protest. And so by the time they are realizing, they are shouting, and you're wondering what is happening. So preventing output, you see there is in terms of performance and everything, there's really less output, and you wonder where is the dysfunction in terms of processes and everything. because you feel you have the requisite number of employees, and so with this kind of input you expect this a kind of output. But there's a mismatch because you put in a lot of, whether it's a supervisor, guys holding or working at any workspace, you have this kind of input, but it has no commensurate level of output. These are just but signs that people going through burnout, and it's important to be able to be aware of these signs, and then wanting to quit. Out of nothing, you're just feeling uninterested. Something that you really were passionate about now is no longer fun to do, and all these kind of things. And so you are thinking, me, I want to resign. I think this is not the ending for me. I'm just feeling tired every day. The moment you begin feeling this, just know there could be signs of burnout, and it's important to respond to it. Then, how does that work? Does burnout work vis-a-vis driving? Because this is where we need to be on the right. So we need to be energized and alert. We need to be connected as team. I talked about teamwork and team spirit. So this is what an ideal situation will be like. Meaningful output. We have this, our processes are clear. We have this kind of input. This is what we expect as output. And at least the failure does not emanate from a dysfunction within the human capital. It's very important to be able to understand that, and also growing and learning. People are showing up more better. You're just yearning to go. I'm not sure how many would really always be looking to the next day of work. I will not say that we raise our hands to respond to that question, but really, ideally, this is where we need to be, so that now when you see your employees, or we feel this is what we are, people can recommend for a team building exercise. Let employees take a technical time out and get outside that workspace, and let them go shout, play out there, and they can come back totally refocused and everything. So encourage employees, they'll have regular check-in meetings. You just don't have to call a meeting when you are discussing outputs, how people are not meeting targets. Sometimes just have a meeting to check in with one another. By the way, as we have our tea break here, I'm just curious, this is maybe to the managers in our midst, or as employees, you can initiate this conversation. By the way, it doesn't have to be just from a supervisor. Even within the context as employees, take time during tea breaks and everything to connect. By the way, guys, how are you going around your job? What is difficult for you even as you do your daily work? And let people have a minute or two to share about their work experience. It's very important. This helps people to feel valued. And if I would have an emotional, burden and weight, I'm able to share, well, I'm not really doing well. I was not able to handle my stuff yesterday because of these interruptions, and this has run over to my second and third day, and I cannot imagine ending my week with this kind of, burden. So how well can we be of support to you, or how well can the organization be of support to you to be able to achieve those targets? And so we talk about a very small gap between burnout and thriving. So it's very important that we have an early recognition that this would save careers, workplace relationships that we talked about, and lives. We don't wait until when we are running on empty, when totally the staff turnover is down, everybody is out on sick leave, and you're wondering, there are no people even enough to cover a certain shift, because everyone is complaining of being unwell, and it's because of the work burden and everything. So let us see how can we alleviate this kind of work stress and distress. Then, how then do we cope? How do you build your own personal stress toolkit? Well, first we began by highlighting the awareness. How does it present? When you hear these symptoms, you begin understanding, wait a minute, what is happening around me? And you want to be curious to understand that. So we want to reflect about the coping strategies that can actually fit into our real life. And this is like a a toolkit. And it's just stuff that we've mentioned in our earlier slides. When we talk about move, even a 10-minute walk clears your head. If you feel how do we would call, there's a name that you feel your mind is so cluttered, is clogged, and is fogged. and you're not able to move, you are using a computer and you are reading the same statement 5 times. Now you realize, hey, I'm not even concentrating. Just maybe if something works, your workspace allows, just have a minute and just do a walk around, the office space or something like that, and be able to refocus again. Then connect, talk to someone, safe, that you trust. Today is good to also emphasize on building safe spaces within the workspace where people can talk about their experiences, freely, and they will not be feeling judged. We don't have to suppress how people express themselves and how they are being impacted by their work environment. That can have a negative outcome and into the functionality of an organization or an institution. You let people connect. These is things that foster teamwork and team spirit. So talk to someone that you feel safe and trust. I'm not in my best fit today. I woke up with some pain on my left. You could have even, physical challenges really that have really hampered the way you are performing your duties. Just let the other team know so that they're able to understand, hey, today John is really not doing very well. He's not on his optimal function, and it is not really an escapism to them doing their duty. We understand is that they are not okay. So with that, we are able to work as a team on how better to support each other. Then we talked about breathing. And we had the breathing exercise, the 4-7-8, 4 seconds breathing, 7 holding, and exhaling 8. This deep breathing activates calmness within our nervous system, and we're able to feel that we are safe. Our mind is able to understand that it's in a safe zone, and so doesn't have to be on a on what on a threatened mood. So it's very important to understand that. Then rest. We talked about have been intentional in achieving the 7-8 hours to repair your mind and body. It's very important. And also reflect. You can journal. For those who are able to, members of a faith-based organization, you can pray, have some times of meditation, so just to process your daily's experiences and also be able to release yourself. These small consistent actions, be it occasional grand gestures. So it's important, very small actions that we are able to integrate in our daily working that can really give us so much perspective in terms of being functional in our workspaces and dealing with the work stress. So I'm not sure what is one thing on this list that you can commit to do this week. You can write it down or tell someone, a colleague, and do it. If it is having the small breaks, we've seen the technical timeouts, you have to walk during lunchtime, take a walk, connecting with somebody, breathing exercise, resting enough, ensure that now I am tracking with my sleep time. If it is at 10, I'm sleeping because I have to wake at this time, then how much hours I'm able to rest consistently, and then reflecting and journaling your experiences. So just small tasks, you run with one that can be able to work within your kind of work that you do on a daily basis. In terms of leaders who could be with us, it's good to understand we need to foster, this is for the supervisors and leaders among us. As you are a team leader, create a culture of care, people show up at work not just on their physical bodies. That's why I emphasized when I was beginning that I like looking at employees and from a holistic perspective. And I always tell people, employees do not leave their brains and soul, the part that connects with their beliefs and values at the organization gate as they check in, and so they just show up with their bodies. No, you are not just dealing with one dimension of a human being, their physical presence. You are dealing with their mind and their soul. So having a culture of care that helps people to be properly integrated and that they are assimilated in their holistic nature is very important. And creating this environment at workplaces that allows people to thrive in their holistic manner is important. We can be very good in the physical spectrum, but then we are losing it on the mind and maybe something on the soul. So how do we integrate this? So nowadays we have things like green spaces, places where people can just go and take a breather and have a technical timeout, and they allow people to refocus again. some meditation and reflection practices that helps people to have a better perspective of life and their work environment. So as leaders and team leaders, you need to ask genuinely, how are you really doing? Normalize doing a check-in for your, team, team members. People feel valued when you check in the morning. It's not when they see a boss there, people are having a very good conversation, but when the team leader just is cited at maybe they are just the car is being parked somewhere, everybody is like running, it's like rapture is happening and everybody is running for their safety, going to their offices. You are feared. We need to create a culture of safety. And when you enter in, people feel your presence, not just from your, commanding, voice and all those kind of things, but is that people feel they are cared for. We also should be normalize taking leave and use it yourself. Even team leaders can get some breakdown, and it's important to be able to focus also on yourself and understand, how am I even being impacted by my employees or my fellow teamworks. We also talk about never rewarding presenteeism over performance. There are people who can be longer at work, but it doesn't say they are doing more. So you're not just having physical people turning up there. Is that, how is this relating to performance? Remember, at the end of the day, we want to have a balanced kind of work environment. Create time for non-work connection. We talk about these team building events and activities for institutions, allows people to connect, and then refers to support. If your institution can be able to has an EAP department, these are counselors and the HR function that are able to help employees deal with some of these stressors. Counselors, some organizations also run on professional chaplains that can help staff debrief. Then model vulnerability as a form of strength, not weakness. It's good to come and talk and say, hey, by the way, guys, even as a team leader, just say, hey, yesterday was not a good day for me. Let people, when the team leader talks like this, and people are encouraged to share about their experiences, and this become a safe space. So psychological safety is built in small moments every day. Those small actions that we do on a daily basis will yield into important things. So we just emphasizing that on the right. You're checking, how are you really doing? What do you need from me? How best can I be of support to you? I've been struggling with workload. I appreciate you asking. Sometimes not really that you would do anything big, but just asking that question as a team leader helps and sets the tone of safety, and employees feel valued. And psychological safety begins with one brave conversation and the ability to be able to connect. I don't know what you carry with yourself from our tonight conversation. But it's important to understand you are not made to break under pressure. You are made to grow. And it's important that you have been able to invest into your time, even for yourself. So your take-home commitments, does it call for you to hydrate and rest? Because your brain needs to needs fuel to cope, with all due respect. And so it's important to understand that the way you fuel your brain is to be able to create time to rest and be able to show up better in your work space. Support a colleague. Caring is a coping strategy too. When people feel heard in an institution or organization, they feel cared for. Then speak up. Silence amplifies stress. Honesty relieves it. If we have an issue, a dysfunction within our workspaces, just say, I mean, this thing is so much weighty on us. How can we, be able to break down these complex assignments into simple, achievable tasks so that there is equitable distribution of the work, and then we do not have some people breaking while others are, not having enough really on their hands. And also choose one strategy or one form of change today. Small steps build resilience. I really appreciate for your time and also for listening to me. Maybe if there are any reactions, I could take in a few, and thank you for your time. Back to you, moderator.
Thank you so much. our guest speaker for this evening, John. That was really, really a great session. My name is Kyla, for those that don't know who I am, part of the JCV's team. So, really, really do appreciate you coming on board and really, really helping us dive into this particular topic this evening. And it's something that each of us are, potentially facing, even if it's not that we're potentially facing as wholesome. I can see there are some thumbs up reactions. I believe we're together. Anyone with any particular questions? I can see that there's a question here from Faith, more or less asking, how it's dealt with. That is, some employers badmouth their employees in their new stations after they have left. What is the best way to handle this? I don't know, John, if you're in a position to maybe speak on this.
Thank you, Faith, for really such a nice question. Some employers badmouth their employees in their new stations after they have left. What is the best way to handle this? I will always go any day, anytime to self-awareness. By the way, this conversation is quite expanded, especially burnout is a very expanded concept. I've just tried to summarize, but I will look at more being self-aware. And how I handle self-awareness is that if I was walking on the road and just somebody mentioned a word that could be like an insultive word, I have two choices, to react to them, or I can choose to just do my business and go. Sometimes this is what we need to do in our workplaces. You are focused in what you want to achieve, and you are self-aware of yourself. So you do not let negative energy, you do not absorb in negative energy or for yourself. And so I will move to being able to acknowledge the emotions generated by whatever this about what thing is happening. But when we have staff meetings, it's important to raise these issues. I would probably say I am concerned that this thing of people about mouthing each other here, backstabbing, those workplace gossips, is having a negative impact into the team. Why must people discuss others? Just raise it. So you acknowledge that and be able to raise it. At that level, when it's done at the departmental level or when you meet it at the staff meeting, you are not targeting an individual. And so everybody lives there reflecting. But also from a personal side is being able to understand our role is not to control what other people's are, is that we can only control how we respond into those things the adversity that is thrown to us. So I'll look more into self-awareness. How have you discovered yourself? And do not be in the business of always sucking negative energy, from that space. Find yourself in that mess. Find meaning in those chaos by remaining focused. Do not enter. I always tell people, don't be dragged into conspiracies. Misery loves company. You are not the easy to always be. You are always found in every misery and conspiracy. If there are chaos and everything, we have to find your name there. You are either the source of the conflict or you escalated the conflict. So personally, this is what I have seen be able to work, that I'm self-aware of what is happening. I raise it where it matters, that I am concerned that this and thing is happening and this is having a negative impact on the teamwork and team spirit. And if we are not careful, it's going to cause a dysfunction on our output. When you raise that, people are now alert and you're able to, wait a minute, guys, we have to stop this monkey business here of always talking around people. I think that's how I'll talk about it.
Thanks, John. We also have another question. Let me deal with the questions before I get to, any comments. We have the organizations that are super toxic, work pressure, micromanaging, a lot of gossip every day. there are issues, matters. Okay, what's worse, I believe, is that management is involved in all this former mentioned issues. So how do we handle these?
So I would just do a rejoiner with my earlier statement. I will talk about self-awareness. Do not drag yourself into those issues. It is true, we understand we have organizations with defective organizational culture and where people really are discouraged because of those kind of things that Yvonne is raising here. So be self-aware of yourself. I always refuse to carry with me from the gate of my organization work pressure. And if I feel it's too much for me, I'll get a colleague who is safe with me to just be able to talk it out. When you talk it out, it refuses to lie on your chest now and becomes a shared issue. But also we have the responsibility of advocacy, whether it is writing on those suggestion box in the institution through anonymous reporting. I believe this will help the organization reflect. Once these things are raised over and over, I believe people should be able to change and deal with this. The problem is how we begin taking in and absorb this as a way of life. And you say, in this institution, even if you say this thing, nothing is going to happen. As long as this is a general manager with his safe Kahoot that are always doing this, then our role is helpless. No, we should always agitate for better workspace environment, for safe workplace environment. We talked about it should be a space of thriving. So we have a responsibility to advocate for a good work environment, and we should raise these issues, but more importantly, self-care. Be self-aware of yourself, just determine that you will not be dragged into those kind of things. I know this is an invitation for me to be enjoined with this conflict, but I am not part of that misery. You just decide and be very candid on how you deal with the issues, then be focused. And also, it's very easy thing. People form those gossip clubs within the organization. Don't be into those spaces. Just go do your work in the evening, leave, and you just go. Sometimes it has to be that way. Thank you, Yvonne.
Thanks, John, for that. I hope, Yvonne and Faith, that your questions have been answered well enough. There was also an earlier mentioning question from Faith as well. Good evening. Is it professional to apply another job barely 3 months in your current job? What happens when an employer does not confirm an employee after a probationary period? I think maybe Faith, from a HR perspective, and also John could probably chime in on this, is maybe you can tap into, or I don't know why it is you are applying for another job. Maybe it is the conditions. Maybe when you got there, things were not. It was not really a good space, and the like. But when it comes to what happens when your employer does not confirm you after the probationary period, and yet you still go to work and it has not been raised, then you are it signals that your employment has in a sense automatically continued. So because you keep showing up to work and nobody's mentioning anything, so there's that. So I hope I've been able to answer that. But while you're leaving your employment, depending on the number of situation that it is, applying for another job is never a problem. I don't know, maybe John, you like to chime in on that?
Please raise that again, Skylar.
It is it professional to apply another job barely 3 months in your current job? What happens when an employer does not confirm an employee after a probationary period?
Man, I don't know, don't have a direct answer to that question. But my quick thoughts are like we all check out for how our own personal beliefs and values align with the workplaces that we choose to work in. And for me, it will go more onto what really is the issue, what is the dysfunction. Are you able to clearly define what is the struggle? Once you're able to understand, it's something that would call for some little bit of patience as things happen. What is the probability of the environment improving? And maybe being able, have you raised these issues with the institution to understand why they are still, holding you up into the probation period? So just seeing what are the necessary resources around the institution, even as you do this. Of course, people will always work for better terms, but again, doesn't say you have to hope and jump from one job to another. It's important to just be able to understand what is the pattern of struggle here. What are you dealing with? So even as you remain hopeful for your next point, is that you are not either exiting too early, but again, also you are not trapped in dysfunction. Is an intricate balance to move, but uh, raise it with the necessary people. I think is more of a HR issue. But for you is understanding how is this impacting on you? What is the emotional weight with it, and being able to find some sort of help.
Thanks, John. I think you've put it quite nicely. I really hope, Faith, we've been able to tackle, especially from both a HR perspective and also from a wellness perspective. Okay, I believe we've also had some comments of there's a mention that Karura has been embraced as a place where you can go to decompress. I back that, and that I can see that wellness has also become a major thing in our current space or spaces. So join a group that helps you do your hobby and socialize, or even learn a new skill. That is input from a member here in our group. So yeah, 100%. I think, John, you can definitely agree. Even when you don't have or you're unable to join a group, sort of go for your runs or go for your morning walks, whatever it may be. Like-minded individuals, they say that like-minded individuals, will find you there. But if you keep waiting for people or a group to start something, you might wait forever. Okay, there's also a comment that stress makes many people push to various habits, avoid taking substances to remain clear minded and have clarity in having solutions. That's just input. I can see also that we have Nathan saying that today's session has quietly inspired them. All thanks to you, John. Uh-huh. We have students CV Hub. Okay. Living what I cannot control is what they have learned tonight as one of the ways to manage or control workplace stress. And they thank you for the session. John, I completely and totally agree. I don't know how many of you have read the Mel Robbins book on Let Them, the Let Them theory, because you can't really control how the people around you react or act. All you can control is your reactions and your actions and how you respond to certain situations. I can see that there is a question also again from Nathan that how does someone handle a hot employer who is purely the genesis of a toxic and unbearable environment? Wow. John?
Thank you, Nathan. What a question. It's true, we get uh, this kind of, unfortunately, we can have these kind of things around our places. But first of all, as I said, when you are self-aware of yourself, you will not be dragged into people's conspiracies and miseries. You choose yourself anytime, and just decide that I know I'm being invited into this conflict and all these kind of things, but I will not take in within. You have the ability to really choose on what get into your, inner space, because The moment you suck in this negative energy for you is going to have an impact again of how you show up to your workspace. So it's unfortunate really if there are no channels to be able to give this kind sort of a feedback and say, I feel the way people address each other in this institution is really impacting us negatively. We should be able to talk in a civil way and interact with each other from a point of respect and honor, understanding that we are all a team. Is unfortunate if there is no space for that kind of a feedback. But then if then there is no that kind of thing, then the only thing I can urge you is to take care of yourself. Just be self-aware of yourself. Come up with ways of how you have your own self-care activities. Maybe at a later date, Skylar and the team, we can talk about self-care from a holistic perspective. The physical, psychological, social, emotional, spiritual, and also professional self-care as a way of building resilience. Today, we just tackled being able to understand those stressors and everything. So for Nathan, that's how I look at it more, is how are you personally being able to respond to this so that you're not able to always take in that toxicity with yourself. But if there are channels through which we can give feedback, always do that, whether it's through anonymous reporting or, as a general observation, do that. You don't have to mention certain name because people are going to be defensive, and it ends up being is a competition of who is saying what to who, and then people take it as so in an insecure space, then it can have an implication to you. I hope that is helpful.
Thank you so much, John. I can see there are no more questions, and it is 9:11, and I wouldn't like to eat into your evenings.